Welcome to the Clothes Free Living Update, brought to you by the folks at clothesfreelife.com. We're excited to be able to bring you this regular feature of the clothes-free news from around the web, information related to clothes-free living, and much more. Now here's your host, Earl D.
Good Clothes Free Friday to everyone. I want to welcome you to episode 21 of the Clothes Free Living Update. We got a lot to cover for you today, and we're going to get right started with this quote from a book by Anadia Judith called The Eastern Body, Western Mind. And she writes, to heal our relationship to our bodies is to heal our relationship to the earth. To regain our ground is to regain our aliveness and the foundations of all that it follows. I really appreciate that idea of reconnecting to nature and the earth through the relationship that we have with our bodies. I think that's a powerful, powerful message that I wanted to share with you today, particularly because coming up this weekend, tomorrow, is World Naturist Day, and it's an opportunity for all those who are thinking about what it means to reclaim that relationship with your body and how it connects with being in the natural environment and in the earth, to find that and to connect with that. So I wanted to share that with you to get started today. I'm your host, Earl D., and this is the Clothes Free Living Update podcast radio. And this is episode 21. I can't believe we're at 21 already. And I wanted to take today to just talk about some stuff that's floating out there and that's been on my mind and things that I've been observing both online and just in some general interactions with people in and around the clothes free community and some of the related communities in terms of naturism and social nudism and so forth. And so if you're out there listening, give us a shout. We're live on chat. You can also link to this from our Twitter page. We're Live Clothes Free on Twitter. You can find us elsewhere in social media on Clothes Free Life on Pinterest, on Google Plus, and also on our Instagram. So we just want to give a shout out to all the folks who follow us there, and look forward to you checking out the podcast. This is also going to be available online shortly after we're done with the live broadcast. It'll be online for our listeners to pick up, and you can download it on iTunes and on Stitcher and on Google Play Music. So those are all the little things I wanted to throw out there for you before trying to take care of business, let you know where you can find us before we get into the heart of the show today. So just thinking about this idea of what is a naturist? What is a nudist? What is social nudism? And does that whole thing need to be rebranded so that it's more accessible, so that it's more available, so that it's more understandable by folks who aren't a part of that circle, aren't a part of that connection? And this came to my mind, this thought came to mind through two different scenarios that I experienced this past week. One was a conversation last week online with a couple of people about what needed to happen so that the whole naturist nudist thing could grow, that could be developed. And someone said, it's all good. Everything's going great. It's practiced worldwide and everything's going great. And we just don't promote it well enough. And I thought to myself, well, if you asked someone what naturism was, or if you asked someone what social nudism was, what would they say? How would they understand it? What would they consider it to be? What response would you get? And I suspect that you might get a lot of different responses. If you ask that question to 100 people, I suspect that you would get 100 different answers. And I don't think that's particularly helpful for the process. If it's not clear what this is all about, what we're trying to accomplish, what the goal is, and I think sometimes that's muddied. Online, it seems like for some people it's all about just getting undressed. For some people, it's about getting out in public, and that just doesn't sit right with me. It can't be just about that. And then I came across this week someone who commented on social media that, it's really about life. It's about life as it's related to being clothes free, or the preference for being clothes free. And that really resonated with me much more than the notion of it's all about just naked people. And if you are a longtime listener to this program, you know that we do not go in for the whole picture reblogging. It's all about pictures thing. We think it's really a lot more than that. And one of the reasons why it's important to be about something more than pictures is because images say a lot when there's nothing attached to them. They say a lot because it is left to the interpretation of the viewer as to what's actually being communicated, what's actually being said. And I think when we do just disembodied pictures a lot, and there's a huge temptation to not do that, right? Because that's what everybody does. But when that's the case, it leaves a limited understanding of the life behind, the body behind, the person behind, the human being behind the image. And the reason that I think that's really important is this. People, especially in this age of social media, can project all kinds of images that aren't real. Right? And one of the reasons I think that we need a rebranding in this whole game, in this whole process, in this whole community, in this whole cause, is because there are a lot of people who have taken the labels that are attributed to this cause, to this process, to this life, and they're out there faking it, pretending that there's something that they're not. And they do that by presenting images and text that seems to jive with what what this is all about. But in reality, when you get behind it and you see their life, you realize that it's not real. They're not really about that. So you might be wondering, where am I going with this? Just today, I was really disappointed to find that an individual who was a part of presenting an organization and a persona online of being all about naturist and nudist philosophy and naturist life and all of that stuff. Come to find out, that person is a big time pushing a porn website. And it just threw me for a loop. This person is involved with, was involved with, I don't know if there still are, but was the face of a group, an organization, a business that said it was producing naturist videos, and they were going to be building this place for naturists to come and relax and get away. And then in the process today of going through some of our Tumblr feed and weeding out some of the stuff that always follows our feed on Tumblr, and I forgot to mention that we have a feed on Tumblr as well before. Again, it's Clothes Free Life. Was going through that and came across this link, and it seemed like such a cool link. It was a picture of someone walking their dog out in the desert, clothes free. And I was like, oh, cool. And I always follow the links and images that I see, because again, when you just see the image, it doesn't tell you everything, right? And so I followed the image to its origin, to its source, as they say on Tumblr. And what did it lead me back to? But this person's site on Tumblr that was offering all kinds of just explicit sexual stuff. There's no other way to say it. And I recognized the face, and I said, wait a minute, that face looks familiar. And I ran back to my Instagram, our Instagram feed, and looked up the two Instagram feeds that are associated with this person that we were following. And sure enough, it's the same person. And this isn't a situation like the one that's happening to one of our followers and organizer of the World Naked Bike Ride in London, Lady Godiva. This isn't the kind of situation that's happening to her, where if you don't follow us on Twitter or follow her on Twitter, someone has taken all her pictures from all over the place and video and put them together in videos and put a different name on them. And is attributing this to a Bollywood star and suggesting that this Bollywood star is the first Indian to participate in a World Naked Bike Ride. Really crazy, isn't it? And then there are the folks out there who say, oh, don't worry about putting your images online. It's no big deal. But I digress. So here's this person, right, who is a part of something, promoting this, encouraging other people to participate in the participate at naturist events and go to naturist venues and so forth. And then boom, unbelievable, graphic, explicit stuff. And she's selling it. Right, so it's not even just saying, "Hey, this is me expressing myself," as some of the sex positive folks say. But no, this is really just she's selling stuff. Right, you can get more of this stuff and that's what people come to associate with naturism and social nudism, and that's why we need a rebrand. That was the first thing. The second thing was I was looking at some just news reports of some of the political banter that's going on out there these days around the United States presidential elections. And, I try not to get caught up in that stuff. But two articles struck me. One I read yesterday and another one I read today. And the one was talking about what a great marketer Donald Trump, the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party, is, and how he's learned how to just present what he wants people to hear in a way that makes sense to those people. And the writer of the column had this idea. He said that he didn't know what the presumptive opponent of Mr. Trump, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, he didn't know what her big idea was. And I thought, yeah, that's really interesting. What's the big idea that we could say to folks outside of the clothes free or the naturist and social nudist community? And what could we say to them is the one big idea about that way of life or that practice that we'd want them to understand? What is it? Could we sum that up? If we were able to talk to someone in a very limited amount of time, could we just say, hey, this is what this is about, and this is why it would be great for you? This is why I would invite you to participate. A perfect example of that is, what is World Naturist Day? What's it about? What do we want people to do? What do we want people to think? What do we want people to say? How do we want them to interact? I don't know. Just based on that, if I was outside of all of that, I'm not sure I'd know. So the big challenge, I think, for us in rebranding is just that. And then today I read another article about the political scene, and this writer was saying that Hillary Clinton may just have found the tag phrase to pin on Donald Trump that's going to turn everything around. And it was just 2 words, Dangerous Donald, right? And built into that is a lot of what she's trying to say about her campaign versus his. How do we say that? How do we get to a simple phrase, a simple understanding of something that we want to share with others in terms of what it means to be practicing clothes-free living, be practicing naturism or social nudism? And I'm not sure there's a whole lot of clarity around that in this in the community. I certainly don't see it online. And one of the reasons we talk about clothes-free life is because that stuff can seem completely disconnected from everyday life. And that's not what it should be about. It shouldn't be just about, well, I have to go someplace to be clothes-free, or I have to go someplace to do this. It should be about that being a part of life. It should be a part of relationships. It should be a part of friendships. It should be a part of connecting to who we are in our own bodies, just as that quote I started off with. It should be about being connected to nature. And that's the thing that I think we're missing in the way that we promote this stuff. I don't think we have a good handle on promoting it. And as a result, what happens is what we see in so many women reacting to guys telling them what they should do, or telling them why they should do this, instead of sharing the benefits of this. So you should just do this. You should just do that. And that hurts the branding as well. And on a weekend where the British Naturism and the American Association for Nude Recreation is promoting this idea of women in naturism and inviting women to come out this weekend and connect in a clothes-free setting, we want to do more than just tell people stuff and try to help them find themselves in this life, in this way of living that we want to promote. So here's a couple of things that I think we can do. I don't want to just be a total Debbie Downer and just say, things are bad. I don't want to be Eeyore and say, whoa, 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 whoa. I want to put some positive stuff out there. And one of the things I want to say is we've got to take seriously the whole idea of branding. We now live in a world where your brand is your message. It used to be that your message was your brand, right? Your message shaped your brand. That's not the case anymore. In this context, in this world in which we live, your brand is your message. Let me give you an example. The Nike brand, the swoosh, right? You know what that's all about right away. The minute you see it, you know what it's about. That's a brand. And that's the thing that we don't really grasp. We have so many competing ideas, so many misconceptions that get communicated by people within who are practicing naturism or nudism, and we just miss it. We don't have a brand that we can say, this is our brand, this is the message. And so we need to start thinking about that. And then once we do that, then that should shape everything that we do. It should shape the way we design websites. It should shape the way we promote stuff in social media. And let me pause a minute and talk about websites. Okay, the web and social media are two of the most important and primary means of communicating and connecting with people in this modern technological age. And I got to tell you, the majority of naturist and nudist websites are horrible. They're pathetic. They are, they're so old and outdated and look so horrible. It's no wonder that people think that naturists are a bunch of old, pervy old men, because they look old, they look dated, they look like people. They were designed by people who are not even in the 21st century yet, that are still doing stuff circa 1995, right? This is a problem, because if the way you present your brand doesn't look good to start, isn't engaging to start, then nobody cares what message you have. Nobody cares what message you have if the brand isn't presented in a form that's exciting and engaging. And so we need to really start to look at that and think about how we present our venues. If a venue is not reaching people, if it's basically dying and young people aren't coming and people outside the existing membership isn't connecting there, the first thing I think they should think about looking at is their website. I went on a website that I followed from a link on Twitter today, and I went on it using my phone, and immediately I was unable to access any real aspects of the site, because the site is built around something called Adobe Flash. Now, anybody who knows anything about what's going on in the world of the internet and web design knows that even the company that developed Adobe Flash, the Adobe, is depreciating and decreasing its use of that, and is no longer promoting it as a product, and it's going to go away. Why? Because it's notoriously buggy, and there are new ways using new technology, newer technology, to do the same things that were being done using that software. And a lot of people were using it for video and for animating their website and things like that. And back when that first came out, that was really cool, because it was the only thing that could be used to do that. But right now, nobody's doing it. In fact, Google will rank your site lower. Starting next month, is going to be ranking sites lower if it's based around Flash. So if we're not looking at things like that and keeping up to date with the technology and updating our site, then we've already lost the battle, because someone's going to come to that site. I think maybe 90 might be overstating it, but I think about 80% of web traffic now is through people accessing stuff on their smartphones. So I come to this website to hear that I followed because I heard they were having an event on Twitter. I heard they were having an event this weekend. I go to that website. I can't access it. Why? Because it uses Flash. Bad branding and communication, and so I'm not gonna go. Right? If that's my experience, even though I might have been interested in what they were having, even though I might have liked to have gone for the wine and cheese tasting party, nope, I'm not gonna go now because I can't access the information on the site because it's based around Flash. Those are the kinds of things that we really need to think about when we start talking about how we present ourselves to the world and to the society in general, and promote the things that are going on. So the other thing is social media. We need to up our game in social media. Social media is no longer just about Facebook. Let me be honest. Facebook is a huge behemoth, right? It's a monumental thing. But it's not the only game in town. And we need to understand that and begin to branch out and stop fighting with Facebook about their community guidelines and realize that we can utilize other sources and other venues out there, other social media platforms out there to get this message across. And we're just not doing that as well. And part of the reason we're not doing that is, I'm going to be real for a minute. A lot of old people are now on Facebook, and it's a platform they're comfortable with, and some of the other platforms they're not as comfortable with. But I read something, came across my newsfeed today. Snapchat, which I don't have an account on Snapchat. We don't have an account on Snapchat. But Snapchat now beats out Twitter for daily users. Okay, they have more daily users on Snapchat than Twitter does. And who are they? They're a younger demographic. Same thing with WhatsApp, younger demographic. And we need to understand that there's a huge, broad world of social media, and social media does not begin and end with Facebook. And every week there's at least a half a dozen people I know of in the Naturist community who are banned off of Facebook because they posted something benign or innocuous that the anonymous censors over at Facebook think isn't appropriate. So let's get beyond Facebook. And here's a great alternative for Facebook.
ClothesFreeLife.com supports the Reddit community for clothes-free living. Nudism.reddit.com.
Try Reddit. Ditch Facebook, try Reddit. That's one of the things we like to say. Ditch Facebook, try Reddit. Reddit.com. And there's a great community, nudism community, over on Reddit.com. It's nudism.reddit.com. Check it out. And it's a great alternative. We wrote a post several months ago that you can find on the website clothesfreelife.com about all the various alternatives to for posting video, for posting images, for posting, for doing Facebook-like things that you can have that don't censor or ban stuff, right? That is just simple nudity. There's some new social media blogging type platforms like Medium and Ello that have a little more liberal way of working with things like simple nudity that you can check out. But that leads me to what I want to share about next, which is the myClothes Free Life, which is our social media, social networking website, our online community, if you would, that we started working on well over a year ago, about a year and 3 months ago. And the first effort was not was not successful. Let's put it that way. I won't say it was a monumental fail, but the technology platform that we were building it and the way we were structuring it didn't allow it to operate it in the way that we wanted it to and for it to be effective. So we went back to the drawing board. We were trying to put all of the magazine content and so forth inside one container that would include a social network, and that just didn't work. So we pulled the social networking part out, and that's a separate piece now, myClothes Free Life. And we're in the pre-launch phase, which means we've not fully launched yet, but we're accepting outside registration. So if you go to myclothesfreelife.com and register, then your membership will get approved after it's been vetted, and then you can get on that site. And we've got all kinds of great features there that we think can be useful to building a social network for clothes-free living. And so why bother with another social network, right? Well, one of the reasons is that it's very easy to get lost in the bigger social networks and to not really find your connections there. With our social network, you're going to find people who are about clothes-free living. We're very sensitive to not letting fakers and some other quote-unquote nudist social networks. It's just flooded. You never know who you're going to encounter. There's a lot of fakers on there, a lot of people who are on there basically just to troll for women and men. We're trying to limit that. I don't think you can have 0% of that. It might happen, but we have things in place that will limit that, like the fact that when you register, you really do have to be vetted. We check out the email. We make sure that it's not coming from an inappropriate site or individual. And then we have a lot of security features built in so that you can feel confident that you're going to be connecting with people that are not trying to troll for naked pictures. So that's one reason. Another reason for having another social network is about rebranding, like we've been talking about. So that it's a place not just for the people who have always been and always populate these other sites, but for newer people who may just be exploring, who may just be checking out the possibility. Several of our earliest registrations were people that encountered us and asked about this on our social media platforms and said, yeah, I might want to check that out. Right? And that's an opportunity for them to do that without feeling like they're just getting dropped into this ocean of people who are going to jump all over them about what kind of pictures they're posting and whether they post pictures or not post pictures and whether they should be clothes-free 24 hours and all of that ridiculous stuff that seems to surface a lot on other social networking sites like that. So that's another reason why we've started this. And to be very honest, we want to pull together. We're not trying to be the biggest social networking site for naturism, nudism, or clothes-free living out there, but we are trying to be the best online community for people who want to explore and engage the clothes-free life. And so we think there's room, lots of room for that, a new space that's really not about trying to hammer people into this thing, but really encourage and help the exploration of clothes-free living to all kinds of people and create space for people from different backgrounds, not just people who come from a European heritage. We're trying to create a diverse community where people who come from an African heritage or a Hispanic heritage that from one of the South American countries, or someone who is from Asia, whether it's Southeast Asia or the Central Asian countries, that anyone, regardless of your racial or ethnic background, is going to find space there. So we've got groups, special interest groups for people who are from those different racial or ethnic backgrounds. Another thing that we've done is that because we believe close-free living is non-sexual, we don't ask anybody about their sexual orientation because we don't think it matters. So whether you're LGBTQ or not, or heterosexual, it doesn't matter to us because we don't ask you about that. But we do create a space for gender identification. So whatever your gender identification, whether it's male, female, whether you identify as queer, whether you identify as gender fluid, transgender, whatever it is, there's space for you there. And that's one of the questions that we think is coming up now, that naturism is going to have to begin, the naturist and nudist community is going to have to begin to look at. And we're taking a lead on that to create space for that. We have a gender fluid group. The only thing we ask for in terms of a demographic is gender identity. Everything else, nothing else is required other than your name and your gender identity. Everything else, and your age, because this is for 18 and older. Not because we think naturism or nudism or close-free living should be restricted to that, but we want to be clear that we're not violating any laws anywhere internationally in terms of that. And so we made a conscious choice to make this 18 or older. So your age, your username, email, and gender identity are the things that we ask for. Everything else is pretty much optional, what you want to share. You share as much of the other stuff or as little of the other stuff as you like. And so I want to just invite you to check out myclothesfreelife.com, and that's one place you'll be able to connect with us. Our contributing editor, Anthony Hart, is on there. Earl D, I'm on there, and we're available, and you can chat with us. And that's one of the things new features we just added to the site before we moved into pre-launch, is we added chat rooms. So there's a main lobby chat room, and I know from being on other sites that's a favorite of site visitors, is chat room. So we've got a chat room, and every group has its own chat room as well. So that's something that people can connect for real-time chat and conversation. One more thing I want to share with you briefly before we go, but take a minute and just listen to this.
Find body positive, clothes-free friendly postcards at www.twoscoops.cards.
So we have one of the people who is on myclothesfreelife.com is a good friend of Clothes Free Life, and he's going to be on an upcoming broadcast of the Clothes Free Living update. Robert Longpre, and we did a recorded interview with him a couple of weeks ago, and we'll be having him on. You may know him on Twitter as the Skyclad Therapist, and he's going to be talking about the healing potential of naturism for individuals, and how close-free living can bring healing for an individual in terms of past experiences and things that they may have had to go through, traumatic things they may have had to go through in life, especially stuff related to the body. But Robert has come up with this awesome idea that we're going to be collaborating on, and we're going to be putting together an anthology of all the poems that have been entered in the Clothes Free Poetry Contest over the last 4 years. It's actually been 4 years since we started that contest. And so it's an exciting thing that we're going to be able to be doing that. And so I just wanted to throw that out there to remind you to look for that. Maybe you've been one of the poets that submitted a poem, and we're going to put together this anthology book through Robert's publishing, his new publishing house that I want to bring your attention to, Retired Eagle Publishing. And he's looking for naturist themed books and authors to publish. So if you've got a book idea, or you've got maybe some poems about naturism or something like that that's naturism themed, I want to encourage you to check out the Retired Eagle Publishing Twitter feed and reach out to them and see if maybe you can make a pitch for your book being published by them. We're certainly excited that we're going to be able to work in this partnership with them and pitch and publish this book, the Clothes Free Life Poetry, of the Clothes Free Life Poetry poems over the last 4 years. So we're looking forward to that as that comes up in the next couple of months or so. Want to just invite you again to check out the recorded version of this on our website, clothesfreelife.com. There will be show notes to all of the stuff that we talked about on this episode. And check it out also for download or streaming on iTunes, Stitcher, and in the Google Play Music Store. That's a lot of stuff that we kind of covered today. I want to just take a moment to do that, just because those were some things that just were right up front for us this past week based on that question that we started with about rebranding. If you've got thoughts about rebranding social nudism and naturism, take your some time and visit us on Twitter or on the website and fill out the poll and post your comment. Let us know what you think about all of this. Does naturism or nudism need a rebranding to make it more accessible, inviting to people outside of the community? As usual, you can find all kinds of original stories and posts, as well as news from around the interwebs on our website at clothesfreelife.com. I want to thank you for tuning in today, and just want to invite you, if you enjoy this podcast and regularly, like us on iTunes, leave a review, let folks know. That way we can get more and more visibility in the iTunes podcast store. So I hope this has been a challenging and interesting conversation for you, and that you'll join us next time on the Clothes Free Living Update.
Thanks for listening to the Clothes Free Living Update with Earl D. If you enjoyed this podcast, we hope you'll tell your friends. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website, clothesfreelife.com, for previous broadcasts. This has been a Clothes Free Life production. Join us next time for another edition of the Clothes Free Living Update.
Stay safe and stay clothes free.